The battle over the planet Kevar 6 was fierce and unforgiving. For more than 16 hours, human ships fought desperately against a relentless enemy. The void of space around the dying star was filled with flashes of light and bursts of fire, from laser cannons and plasma weapons. The human fleet was outnumbered and trapped. Their ships had nowhere to run because the star's gravity pulled everything inward, making it a deadly trap. Explosions shook the hull of the HSS Arclight, one of the human warships at the front of the fight. Inside the ship, alarms screamed and lights flashed red everywhere, warning of danger. The thick metal walls vibrated as enemy fire tore through the ship's shields and armor. Captain Alina Morrow was in the command room, staring at the tactical displays with tired but sharp eyes. She felt the pain in her side where shrapnel had torn through her uniform and skin during the last attack. Blood trickled down and soaked her sleeve, but she barely noticed. Her focus was on the fight. Around her, crew members ran back and forth, shouting orders and reports. They patched holes, fired weapons, and worked to keep the ship alive. The air smelled of burnt metal and recycled oxygen. Every second felt like a lifetime. Messages came through the comm system, some desperate and fearful, others calm and steady. The fleet's command was giving the order to retreat. The humans were losing ground and could not hold the line much longer. But Alina shook her head and refused to give up. She knew that if they ran now, the alien enemies, known as the Skari Reavers, would follow them back to Earth. The Reavers were a deadly and merciless species, and allowing them to chase humanity home would be a disaster. No one else seemed willing to stay and fight, but Alina was different. She was born and trained for moments like this. The pain in her side grew stronger, but she swallowed it down, refusing to show weakness. Her voice was firm as she barked orders to her officers. "Get me helm control," she said, her voice rough but clear. The pilot at the helm nodded and took his place. Alina needed to steer the ship herself because the automated systems were damaged or offline. She gripped the controls tightly, feeling the vibrations of the ship as it dodged enemy fire and weaved through debris. Outside the ship, the battle raged on. The Skari Reavers attacked with waves of dreadships, huge, dark, menacing vessels covered in spikes and strange alien markings. Their weapons fired deadly plasma beams and missiles that exploded against the human fleet's shields. The Reavers were not just soldiers, they were hunters. Their culture was built around strength and killing for sport. Their ships moved like predators stalking their prey, carefully picking off the weakest targets first. Alina's ship had already lost 2 engines and suffered heavy damage, but she refused to quit. She scanned the battlefield with her eyes, searching for threats and opportunities. Suddenly, her sensors picked up something unusual. One of the Reaver ships was moving differently from the rest. It was quiet, almost invisible to their scanners, like a shadow among the stars. The ship was closing in on her position, moving with a slow, deadly patience. Inside that ship, a terrible creature named Zakarn watched the Arclight. He was one of the Reaver warlords, a powerful and cruel leader who saw Alina as a worthy opponent. He had already lost many warriors to her skill and bravery, and now he wanted to make her suffer. When he sensed her blood in the air, the sign of injury, he smiled cruelly. To him, this meant the hunt was about to get even more exciting. He would track her down, corner her, and destroy her. The Reavers did not fear death or injury. They saw it as part of the game. But Zakarn did not understand one thing about humans. When they are hurt, they do not always run. Sometimes they fight harder, they become more dangerous. Alina was one of those humans. Even though she was bleeding, she was not weak. Her mind raced through strategies and plans, looking for a way to turn the tide. She gritted her teeth and prepared to face the predator that had come for her. Despite the pain and the damage to her ship, Alina's spirit burned bright. She was not alone. The entire human fleet was counting on her courage to hold the line just a little longer. The fate of many worlds depended on it. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a fierce determination growing. The Reavers wanted a hunt, a game of predator and prey. But Alina was ready to show them that humans were not easy prey. Not now, not ever. The HSS Arclight floated like a wounded beast in the silent darkness of space, battered but still alive. Captain Alina Morrow's blood stained her uniform, but she moved with careful purpose. She knew the enemy was nearby, lurking like a shadow waiting for the right moment to strike. The strange Reaver ship that had been stalking her remained close, its presence heavy and threatening on the sensors. But instead of attacking head-on, the Reaver warlord Zakarn had stopped. His ship powered down most of its systems, dropping, to a faint signal that nearly vanished from detection. It was a tactic designed to trick prey into believing the hunter was gone. Zakarn was playing dead. Alina realized the danger immediately. The silence was worse than any gunfire because it meant the predator was hiding, waiting for her to lower her guard. Her wound throbbed, a constant reminder of how close she had come to death, but her mind stayed sharp. She ordered the crew to repair critical systems while she and her officers tried to figure out Zakarn's next move. They ran scans and searched for any sign of the hidden ship, but the Reaver's stealth technology was unlike anything humans had seen before. It masked their ship in shadows and scrambled the sensors, making it almost invisible. The hours dragged on in tense silence. Alina's ship was badly damaged, forcing her to slow down and hide near a thick asteroid belt. The massive rocks provided some cover, but also limited movement and options. The crew worked feverishly to patch the hull, restore engines, and boost shields. The sense of waiting, trapped in a deadly trap, gnawed at everyone's nerves. They all knew that at any moment, Zakarn could reveal himself again. The Predator's patience was frightening because it showed how confident he was in his power. Alina called her closest officers for a quiet meeting in the command room. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with resolve. "He's waiting for us to make a mistake," she said softly. "If we try to run, he'll catch us. If we fight without a plan, we'll be destroyed. We need to be smarter than him." The officers nodded grimly. They trusted her, and they knew that survival depended on their ability to outthink a predator who knew no mercy. Meanwhile, Zakarn watched them through hidden cameras aboard his ship. He admired Alina's strength and intelligence, but felt a cruel thrill at the idea of breaking her spirit. He believed the hunt was nearly over. To him, humans were clever, but ultimately fragile. Their emotions and weaknesses would be their downfall. His crew prepared for the final strike. They armed their weapons and sharpened their claws, ready to close in and finish the kill. Yet Zakarn had one last trick. He would let Alina think she had time to heal, only to strike when she was least ready. But Alina had her own secret. She was not just waiting for the enemy to attack, she was planning a trap. While her crew fixed the ship, she coordinated with nearby human fleets. Messages crackled through the comm lines, passing orders and coordinating reinforcements. The humans might be outnumbered and wounded, but they never gave up hope or the will to fight back. Alina used every resource available, tapping into their advanced tactics and human ingenuity. She remembered what her father, a veteran soldier, once told her. Sometimes the best way to survive a predator is to play dead yourself. It was a dangerous gamble. She ordered the crew to power down non-essential systems and made the arc light appear lifeless, drifting without power in the asteroid field. Alina hoped this would fool Zakarn into believing she was weak and helpless. The silence deepened, broken only by the quiet sounds of repairs and soft breathing in the command room. Alina kept her hand steady on the control panel, watching the sensors for any sign of the Reaver's return. Her mind raced through every possible scenario. She was bleeding and injured, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. The stakes were higher than just one ship or one battle. They were fighting for the survival of humanity itself. Suddenly, the faint blip of a signal appeared on the edge of the scanner. Zakarn's ship had moved again, but this time Alina was ready. Her crew powered up hidden weapons and locked onto the Reaver vessel. They were no longer prey waiting to be hunted. They were hunters themselves. The tension snapped like a bowstring. The arc light surged forward, lasers flaring and missiles launching into the dark void. Alina's voice was calm but fierce as she commanded her crew. "Show them what humans do when cornered. Fight like your lives depend on it, because they." The ambush had begun. The moment the HSS Arclight sprang to life from its silent drift, the battle changed forever. Captain Alina Morrow's plan had worked. The Reaver warlord Zkarn and his ship had assumed the human vessel was dead, weak, and easy prey. Instead, the humans had been waiting, hiding their strength behind a mask of silence. Suddenly, lasers blazed from the Arclight's weapons, cutting through the darkness like streaks of lightning. Missiles streaked away from the ship's launchers, hurtling toward the lurking Reaver vessel. Alina's heart pounded with fierce determination as she commanded her crew with steady precision. "Target the enemy's engines first. Disable their movement," she ordered. The crew responded with swift action, their training and discipline shining through the chaos. The Reaver ship shuddered as explosions rocked its hull. Zkarn's surprise turned quickly to anger. He cursed the humans in his harsh alien tongue, furious at having been fooled. His warriors scrambled to man their battle stations, weapons flaring to life. But the humans had taken the initiative, and the advantage was theirs. The Reaver ship struggled to maneuver, crippled by the precise strikes from the Arclights. Weapons. The space around the asteroid belt erupted with the soundless fury of the fight, energy beams, plasma blasts, and missile trails lighting the void. Alina pushed her ship harder than it had ever gone before. Her injury throbbed sharply with every movement, but she refused to slow down. Her mind was sharp and clear, focused on one goal: survival and victory. Around her, the crew fought like warriors forged from steel. They patched systems even as weapons fired, repaired shields while dodging attacks, and maintained the ship's energy despite the damage. Their determination was unbreakable. Meanwhile, Zkarn's pride was wounded. He ordered his ship to activate a terrifying weapon, a massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire sections of the asteroid belt. If he could fire it, he would obliterate the Arclight and crush any chance of human resistance. But the weapon took time to charge, and in those moments, Alina's ship darted between the giant rocks, using the terrain as cover. The fight became a deadly dance of cat and mouse. Alina's ship moved with surprising agility, weaving through tight spaces the Reaver ship couldn't safely enter. The asteroid belt was both a shield and a trap, forcing careful movement but offering protection from the larger enemy warships. Firepower. Alina's knowledge of human tactics and ship control gave her an edge. She pushed the crew to their limits, trusting their skill and courage. As the battle raged, Alina caught sight of distant blips on the sensors. Reinforcements. The rest of the human fleet was arriving. The signal brought a surge of hope and renewed strength. The humans were far from defeated. They had played their hand perfectly. Instead of being hunted, they were now the hunters. Suddenly, one of the ship's engineers yelled out, "Captain, sensors show a breach in the rear hull. We've been hit." Alina's heart clenched, but she stayed calm. "Seal it immediately. Send damage control teams," she commanded. The crew moved quickly, sealing the breach with robotic drones and emergency bulkheads. The ship groaned under the strain, but it held together. Zkarn realized his time was running out. The reinforcements meant the Reavers were about to be surrounded and overwhelmed. He gritted his teeth and ordered a desperate maneuver, a powerful shockwave weapon designed to disable enemy ships nearby. The blast was a violent pulse of energy that rippled through space, knocking systems offline and shaking the Arclight violently. The crew struggled to keep control, alarms blaring as vital systems flickered. Alina gritted her teeth and fought through the pain in her side, shouting orders to keep the ship stable. "Keep firing. Don't let them regroup," she demanded. The crew rallied, pushing back with every weapon they had left. The reinforcements moved in fast, engaging other Reaver ships in a fierce firefight. The human fleet's arrival shifted the balance of power in the battle. The fight was brutal, with losses on both sides. Explosions lit the void as ships were destroyed or disabled. The Reavers fought with savage fury, but the humans showed something even stronger: unyielding will and clever strategy. Alina's gamble to play dead had turned into a stunning counterattack that caught the enemy off guard. Through it all, Alina remained the calm center of the storm. Her injury was a constant reminder of the cost, but her determination never wavered. She knew this battle was just the beginning of a longer war, but this victory was a message. Humans were not weak prey. They were fierce, smart, and ready to fight back no matter what. As the battle began to turn in humanity's favor, Alina allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. She looked out the viewing port at the swirling chaos of the fight and thought of the countless lives depending on her leadership. She promised herself she would do everything to protect them, even if it meant risking everything. The hunt had turned. The predator had played dead, but the human prey was now the hunter. The battle's fierce roar filled the blackness of space, but within the HSS Arclight, a quiet determination pulsed through every crew member. The Reaver fleet had arrived, a dark wave of ships descending like vultures to finish the hunt. But Captain Alina Morrow and her crew were ready. They had faced the Predator's trap and now held the upper hand. The humans had turned the tide, but the war was far from over. Alina's ship, though battered, glowed with renewed strength. The repairs done in the asteroid belt had stabilized the hull, and the shields flickered to life with steady power. The crew worked in perfect sync, each knowing their role in the struggle for survival. Weapons officers adjusted their targeting systems, engineers rerouted power to the engines for better speed and agility, and medics tended to the wounded with steady hands and quiet words. Every breath aboard the Arclight was heavy with the weight of what was at stake, the lives of all humanity. The Reavers, sensing their advantage slipping away, unleashed their full fury. Their warships moved in tight formation, coordinated and ruthless. Their plasma beams sliced through space, lighting the void with deadly precision. Alina watched from the command deck, eyes sharp as a hawk. She issued orders with calm authority, guiding her ship through the chaos. Focus on the command vessels, she instructed. Take out their leaders first. Without direction, they'll fall apart. The crew obeyed without hesitation, their trust in their captain absolute. The Arclight darted through the battlefield, weaving past enemy fire and delivering crushing blows. Explosions rocked nearby ships as human missiles found their marks. The Reavers were powerful, but the humans were clever and determined. They fought with something the aliens could not understand, a fierce spirit born of survival and hope. Alina's thoughts flicked to her crew, each person a vital part of the fight. Lieutenant Jax, the weapons officer, kept firing despite a busted arm. Engineer Sam patched critical systems while under fire. Medic Lena moved swiftly, tending to the injured with quiet courage. They were more than soldiers, they were family. And in this battle, family was everything. Amid the clash, a sudden alarm blared. Sensors detected a new threat, an enormous Reaver dreadnought had appeared at the edge of the fight, a massive warship bristling with weapons and armor. Its arrival sent a chill through the crew. This ship was a nightmare made real, designed to crush entire fleets with a single salvo. Alina's jaw tightened. The dreadnought was the ultimate test. She knew the Arclight alone could not face such a beast head-on. She quickly sent a message to the fleet commander. Reinforcements were needed and fast. The rest of the human ships rallied, rushing to block the dreadnought's advance. The fleet tightened around the Arclight like a shield, ready to fight to the last breath. The dreadnought fired its first volley, massive beams of energy that tore through space, destroying smaller ships with terrifying ease. The battlefield exploded with chaos, debris flying in all directions. The humans responded with coordinated attacks, targeting the dreadnought's weak points. The battle was brutal and unforgiving, every second a struggle against death. Inside the Arclight, Alina felt the pain in her side grow sharper, but she pushed it aside. Her mind raced, searching for a way to win. Then an idea sparked. If the Reavers relied on brute strength and firepower, maybe they could be outsmarted. She ordered the crew to prepare a risky maneuver, a stealth approach through the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover to get close enough for a critical strike. The ship slipped into the shadows, engines barely making a sound. The tension was electric as the Arclight moved closer to the dreadnought, dodging patrols and scanning for defenses. Alina's heart pounded. This was their chance to end the nightmare, or be crushed trying. When they were close enough, the Arclight's crew launched a coordinated attack. Missiles struck the dreadnought's shields, distracting the enemy while a smaller strike team prepared to board. Alina watched, breath held, as the team entered the enemy ship through an emergency hatch. Inside, they faced savage alien warriors and deadly traps, but they pressed forward with fierce determination. Back on the Arclight, the battle raged on. The fleet fought with everything they had, buying time for the boarding team. Explosions rocked the enemy ship as sabotage began from within. Alina's eyes shone with pride. Her crew was more than survivors. They were heroes. Finally, a massive explosion rocked the dreadnought. The boarding team had succeeded in destroying the ship's core systems. The dreadnought shuddered, its weapons going dark. The Reavers' morale broke. One by one, their ships began to retreat, fading into the darkness of space. The battle was won, but the cost was heavy. The Arclight was scarred, and many brave humans were lost. Alina stood on the command deck looking out at the stars. They had faced death and come through stronger. The humans had survived the Predator's game and turned it into their own. The war was far from over, but the tide had turned. Humanity's fire burned brighter than ever, a beacon of hope in the vast, dangerous universe. The battle had ended, but the silence that followed was heavy with loss. The HSS Arclight floated among the scattered remains of the shattered battlefield. Its hull was battered, scars of war visible under the dim glow of distant stars. Inside, the crew moved quietly, exhaustion etched on every face. Victory had been claimed, but it came with a terrible cost. The ship's corridors were lined with the wounded, many too weak to stand. Medical teams worked tirelessly, their hands steady despite the flood of injuries. The scent of antiseptic mixed with the hum of machines keeping the dying alive. Captain Alina Morrow, still nursing the pain from her own wound, moved through the ship with quiet determination. She felt every loss deeply. Each life lost was a personal blow. Yet there was no time for grief to consume her. The war was not over, and humanity's survival depended on strength, hope, and unbreakable will. Alina stood before the ship's command console, reviewing data and battle reports. The Reavers had retreated but not defeated. Their fleet was damaged, scattered, but their hatred burned stronger than ever. Alina knew this was only the first chapter of a brutal war that could stretch across galaxies. The crew was weary but alive, and that meant they could fight another day. Messages from the rest of the human fleet arrived. Reinforcements were on their way, and support was being organized to repair the Arclight and resupply the forces. The humans were not alone. Together, they formed a fragile but fierce alliance, determined to push back the alien menace. Despite the brief calm, tension hung thick in the air. The battle had revealed how ruthless and relentless the Reavers truly were. Their hatred of humans went beyond simple conquest. It was personal, born from ancient grudges and fear of human resilience. Every attack had been a message. Humans were prey. But the humans had answered with fire and fury. Alina's mind drifted to the boarding team that had taken such risks inside the enemy dreadnought. Their bravery saved countless lives, but some had not returned. She honored their sacrifice silently. They were heroes who had struck a blow in the darkness, lighting a path for others to follow. The Arclight's repair bays buzzed with activity as engineers worked day and night. Systems were restored, weapons recalibrated, and armor plates reforged. The ship was a symbol of human ingenuity and endurance, a battered but unbroken warrior ready to fight again. Outside the ship's reinforced windows, the stars shone cold, and distant but within, a fire burned bright. The crew's spirit refused to be crushed. In the mess hall, laughter slowly returned as tired voices shared stories of courage and hope. Bonds grew stronger, forged in the heat of battle and the quiet moments afterward. Alina knew these connections were as vital as any weapon. Yet even amid recovery, new threats emerged. Scouts reported strange energy readings near a nearby star system, signs of another Reaver fleet gathering strength. The enemy was regrouping, preparing for a counterattack that could wipe out human colonies. The knowledge weighed heavily on everyone. There was no safe place in the galaxy, no refuge from the war that had come to their doorsteps. But the humans were determined. They would not run or hide. They would fight with every ounce of strength, wit, and heart they possessed. In a private moment, Alina visited the ship's memorial, a quiet chamber honoring those who had fallen. Names etched in cold metal, faces frozen in holographic light. Tears filled her eyes as she traced the names of friends and crew members lost to the war. She whispered promises to remember them, to keep fighting so their sacrifice would not be in vain. That promise gave her strength. It reminded her that victory was not just about winning battles but about protecting the future. As the Arclight prepared to leave the repair dock, Alina gathered her officers for a briefing. The war had changed them all. They were no longer just soldiers. They were warriors fighting for survival and hope. Plans were made to launch strikes against Reaver supply lines and protect vulnerable human worlds. The fleet's mission was clear: to turn the tide decisively and show the galaxy that humanity would not be broken. Outside, the stars blinked silently. The void held dangers untold, but it also held possibilities. Humanity's journey was just beginning. The war was harsh and the price high, but in the face of overwhelming odds, the humans stood tall. Their courage, their ingenuity, and their unyielding spirit were a beacon in the dark. The predator had played dead to survive, but now the human predator was awake, ready to hunt. The galaxy would never forget the day the Arclight and its crew claimed victory and paid the price. After the heavy cost of the last battle, the humans were not about to rest. The crew of the HSS Arclight and the entire human fleet had regrouped, but the war was far from over. Captain Alina Morrow stood on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the ship's reinforced windows. She knew the Reavers would not stay quiet for long. They were fierce, brutal, and clever enemies who would strike back hard. The scouts had already detected signs of their new movements, shadowy fleets gathering near the edge of known space. It was a warning and a call to action. The humans could not wait for the enemy to come to them again. They had to take the fight to the Reavers before more human colonies were lost. Plans were made swiftly to launch a counterattack. This time the humans would be the hunters. The Arclight led the way, cutting through the darkness of space toward the coordinates of the Reaver gathering. The fleet was larger now, bolstered by reinforcements and fresh ships that gleamed with the promise of new hope. Each pilot, engineer, and soldier knew what was at stake: the survival of their people, the freedom of their worlds. The tension was thick, but so was the determination. Every crew member felt the weight of history on their shoulders, and yet they carried it with pride and unbreakable will. As the ships approached the enemy position, the silence was almost deafening, broken only by the steady hum of engines and the quiet voices of crews preparing for battle. Suddenly, the calm shattered as the Reaver fleet revealed itself, massive and menacing, stretching across the star field like a dark wall. Their ships bristled with weapons, and their war cries echoed faintly through communications, a chilling reminder of their hatred. But the humans did not falter. The fleet moved, with precision, executing maneuvers practiced 1,000 times over. The Arclight and its escort wove through enemy fire, returning shots with deadly accuracy. Explosions lit the void as ships collided and burned, the battle fierce and unrelenting. Pilots pushed their vessels to the limit, weaving through debris and plasma storms, dodging enemy missiles with skill and nerve. Engineers worked frantically to keep systems online, and medics prepared for the wounded who would surely come. The fight was brutal, every moment a desperate struggle for survival. Amid the chaos, Alina spotted a crucial opportunity. The Reaver flagship, larger and more heavily armed than the others, was exposing its rear to attack. She called out orders to concentrate fire there, knowing that destroying the flagship would break the enemy's command and crush their morale. The fleet responded, beams of energy and volleys of missiles homing in on the target. The flagship shook under the assault, its shields flickering. But the Reavers fought back fiercely, sending wave after wave of fighters to protect it. The space around the flagship became a deadly dance of attack and defense, with lives hanging in the balance. Inside the flagship, the enemy commander barked orders, desperate to hold the line. His ship was a fortress, but the humans had learned the Reavers' tactics. Boarding parties from the Arclight prepared for a risky assault, aiming to sabotage the flagship's core systems from within. The team moved swiftly and silently, navigating narrow corridors filled with traps and alien warriors. Their mission was clear: disable the flagship or die trying. Their courage was unmatched, each member knowing the lives of millions depended on their success. Explosions echoed through the ship's interior as sabotage took hold, and soon the flagship's systems began to fail. Back in the battle, the flagship faltered, its weapons going dark one by one. The Reaver fleet's formation broke apart, confusion spreading among their ranks. The humans pressed their advantage, pushing the enemy into retreat. The battle cry of victory rose among the human ships, but the fight was costly. Many brave souls were lost, ships destroyed in flames. The price of this counterattack was steep, but the message was clear: humans would not bow to fear or death. They fought not just to survive, but to claim their place in the stars. As the dust settled and the Reavers fled, the fleet regrouped, tending to their wounded and counting their losses. The victory was hard-won, but it was a turning point. Alina stood once more on the command deck, tired but resolute. The humans had struck back with strength and strategy, proving that they could stand against even the darkest threats. Yet, she knew the war was far from over. The Reavers would return, and the galaxy's future hung in the balance. But for now, humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever, a fierce light in the vast darkness ready to fight for every star they called home. The war had dragged on for months, each battle more intense and costly than the last. The humans and the Reavers both bore scars. Ships lost, worlds damaged, lives shattered. But neither side gave up. The tension in the galaxy was thick, like the calm before a storm ready to burst. Captain Alina Morrow and the crew of the HSS Arclight knew that everything would come down to one last fight. The Reavers were gathering their full strength for a final, desperate strike aimed at the heart of human space. This was no ordinary battle. It was a fight for survival itself. The humans could either win and secure a future, or lose everything they had fought for. As the fleet moved closer to the Reaver homeworld, nerves stretched tight. Every soldier, pilot, and crew member understood the risk but stood ready with steady hands and fierce hearts. The Arclight led the fleet through thick asteroid fields and past glowing nebulae, moving with careful speed and silent determination. As they approached the enemy's stronghold, sensors picked up a massive armada waiting in ambush, ships larger and more terrifying than anything seen before. The Reavers had prepared well, surrounding their planet with a fortress of weapons and shields. The space around the homeworld was a deadly maze filled with mines, patrols, and hidden turrets ready to blast intruders to pieces. But the humans had a plan. They would split the fleet into groups to strike from different angles, overwhelming the enemy's defenses. It was risky, and failure meant annihilation. But hope burned in every heart. The battle began with sudden violence. Explosions erupted like violent storms, lighting the void with deadly fire. Human fighters darted between enemy cruisers, engaging in dogfights that tested every skill they had. Massive warships exchanged powerful blasts, shaking space itself. Amid the chaos, Alina piloted the Arclight like a hawk, dodging enemy fire, while issuing orders to her crew. Her voice was calm, cutting through the noise, inspiring those around her. The fleet fought as one, a tight formation of determination and courage. Deep inside the Reaver planet, the enemy leadership scrambled to respond. Their arrogance had made them underestimate the humans, but now panic spread. The Reavers realized their fortress was cracking. Alina knew this was the moment to strike the final blow. A special team was sent aboard the enemy's flagship, carrying a secret weapon designed to disable the planet's defenses forever. The boarding party faced horrors, alien traps, fierce warriors, and a maze of corridors meant to trap and kill. But their training and will to survive pushed them forward. One by one, they reached the control center, planting charges and hacking the systems. Alarms blared, but the sabotage was nearly complete. Outside, the battle raged on, with human ships, taking heavy hits but refusing to fall back. The skies above the Reaver homeworld burned with fire and smoke. Just as the flagship's core systems began to fail, The boarding team made a desperate escape through narrow escape pods, hurtling into space as explosions ripped through the ship. The planet's shield collapsed, leaving the Reaver forces exposed. The humans pressed their attack, blasting through defenses and breaking enemy lines. The final moments of the battle were fierce and chaotic. Ships collided, fighters crashed, and countless lives were lost on both sides. Yet in the end, human courage and strategy won. The Reaver's homeworld was theirs. The silence that followed was heavy, but filled with relief. The cost had been great, but the victory was clear. Captain Alina Morrow and her crew stood among the stars, exhausted but proud. The war was over. Humanity had faced the Predator, bled from countless wounds, yet survived and conquered. The galaxy would remember this day, not as a story of destruction, but as a testament to the strength, courage, and unyielding spirit of humanity. Their fight had been brutal and heartbreaking, but it had forged a future where humans would no longer be prey. They were the hunters now. The battle was over, but the quiet that followed was unlike any the humans had known. The stars seemed softer now, as if the galaxy itself was catching its breath. Captain Alina Morrow stood on the bridge of the HSS Arclight, gazing out at the remnants of the war zone, a field of shattered ships, drifting debris, and silent echoes of the fierce fight that had just ended. The victory was theirs, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. The fleet was battered and scarred, many brave souls lost to the darkness of space. Alina's heart ached for every life that had been given, every friend who would never return home. Yet, amidst the sorrow, a deep sense of pride grew. Humanity had faced a terrifying predator, something thought unstoppable, and survived through courage, cleverness, and unbreakable will. Slowly, the fleet began its journey home, moving through the star systems once threatened by the Reavers, now free from fear. Colonies that had once hidden in silence were now vibrant with hope again. Messages of thanks and relief echoed across the comm channels, voices filled with joy and tears. The humans had not just defended their worlds, they had shown the galaxy a strength no one could ignore. News of the victory spread fast, reaching distant planets and alien civilizations. Some watched with respect, others with wary eyes. The humans had changed. They were no longer seen as weak or easy prey, but as a powerful force that could not be taken lightly. Allies stepped forward, inspired by humanity's fight, ready to stand beside them in the uncertain times ahead. But the scars of war lingered. Many ships needed repairs, families mourned lost loved ones, and leaders faced hard questions about what had been sacrificed and what must be rebuilt. Alina found herself walking through the halls of the Arclight, visiting wounded crew members, and sharing quiet moments with those who had faced death and come back. Their stories were filled with bravery, fear, and hope, a reminder of what had been endured and what could still be achieved. Amidst this, a new mission began to form. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknown dangers. The humans knew they could not simply return to old ways and live in fear of the next predator. Instead, they would explore, learn, and prepare. Science teams set out to study the Reaver's technology, searching for secrets to prevent another attack. Diplomats reached out to alien races, building bridges where there had once been walls. Young pilots trained harder than ever, inspired by the legends of the battles they had lived through. Captain Alina, too, found a new role, not just as a fighter but as a leader who would guide humanity into a future where strength came from unity, knowledge, and courage. She looked out at the stars once more, imagining all the worlds yet to explore, all the challenges yet to face. Humanity's journey was far from over. The war had changed them, shaped them into something greater. They had learned the price of survival, the power of sacrifice, and the meaning of hope. As the Arclight sailed through the calm skies, carrying the weight of memory and the promise of tomorrow, the humans knew one thing for sure: they would never play dead again. They were hunters now, protectors of their home and warriors of the stars. The galaxy had seen their blood spilled and had tested their spirit, but it had also witnessed their rise. In the silent space between stars, a new chapter had begun, one written by the hands of humans who refuse to be defeated. Their story would be told for generations, of a bleeding warrior and a predator who played dead only to rise and conquer.